Hey, what's up guys, it is Psycho Sam here and welcome back to the channel. And today I'm super excited to bring you a brand new series on this channel where we're going to be covering up Unit in Unity. So we're going to be taking a look at how actually networking works, and for this specific episode, like the first episode ever, we are actually going to be covering the very basics, like the basic components that your game requires and that are necessary for your game to actually work properly. So in the future, obviously we're going to get into a lot more coding and stuff like that, but obviously for now we're just going to be a little bit more beginner friendly in that kind of sense. And guys, if you enjoyed this episode of Unit tutorial, make sure to drop a like down below, hit that thumbs up button so that I see what kind of series you guys would like to see more of, because if you want to see this type of content, obviously leaving a like is the best kind of support you can give. Also leave a comment if you have any feedback, if you have any suggestions, if you want me to cover up something very specific in my next episode, because I can do that. Just let me know in the comments, obviously. Also, if you're new around here, obviously subscribe so that you stay up to tune and get notified when we actually upload a new episode of this or any other series on the channel that we're running right now. Now, with that being said, guys, let's get right into the first episode here. Alrighty guys, so as you can see, we're in Unity now and we're gonna take a look at, like I said, we're gonna begin by the basics. We're gonna take a look at how you actually get through all the components that are necessary and pretty much required by your game to work properly, and then we're going to set up everything correctly and then get into coding. Might be that we get into coding a little bit later in this episodes, or in this series rather, but we'll see how far we get with this episode 1. So let's begin by creating a empty object. And this game object is going to be containing, or it's pretty much going to be our game manager, which is also going to be our network manager. And what I mean is that it's going to be the object where we host and contain all the components that are, necessarily on the server side, and also for our game to work properly. So if you have like a scoreboard and you want to not save it on every single player and every single client, you just do it on game manager, and this is pretty much one of these objects that you can pretty much have the components where you literally locate everything regarding your game, which is generally going to be synced to the server. So we can actually rename it game manager. And we're gonna get started by adding a component to this, which is named Network Manager. Now, the Network Manager pretty much is the script, the fodder script, like I usually say, which is going to be the host itself. So this is the script where you call all your offline scenes, online scenes, network information like the IP address and all that kind of stuff. And we're gonna go through the variables a little bit quick. So don't destroy on load basically is a very good function that Unity lets us use as a part of the networking system, which pretty much is, like it says here, enabled to persist the network manager across scene changes. Meaning, if you, for example, if you have like a FPS game, you have two scenes, one scene for the main menu and one scene for the map itself where the players play, right? And you want to keep the network manager on both of these scenes, then you can just enable this and it will automatically take care of it for you. And by doing so, you don't lose or rather the player doesn't lose the connection to the server. So it's very good to actually use it. Run in background. This basically means that whenever you alter your focus on the computer to another software like Unity, because we are all game devs here, or any other game, Chrome, a web browser and all that kind of stuff, then it's still going to be connected to the network correctly. So always keep these two bad boys checked in here, so to ensure that everything is correct. Next up in our list here, we have something called log level, and it's pretty much like, there's not so much information about this, it's pretty limited so far. But the basics of it is simply that it's a filter you can set for what kind of specific logs your server should listen to and what kind of logs should be actually stored in the server. So, for example, it's set to info by default, so it's going to sync every kind of information log that is sent through the server to your clients and so on. It's not a very, very, very necessary thing to play with for now, at least. Maybe if you're making a bigger game and you want to kind of save a little bit more information regarding that sense, obviously you can play around with it, but it's not, extremely important for the beginning. So we also have a offline scene, which is a scene that is going to be loaded when the network goes offline, so that you can display that the player is not connected to the network for some reason, so he's disconnected from the server, like it says there. And we also have a online scene as opposition to the offline one, which is going to be the one that the player sees whenever the network comes online, so the player or the client basically connects to the network. Then we also have network information, which is going to display all the network address, port, server binding to IP, and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to play around with the network settings, the server settings rather, you want to play around with these. We're not going to go through them very in depth right now because we are going to be hosting our game on our local host, which is this computer, the local computer, pretty much local network rather. So we're going to be hosting it on this, so we're not going to play with the network address. But if you want to host it on a specific network, obviously just change it from there. Now we also have spawn info, which is where you pretty much set, literally as the name suggests, everything regarding the spawn. So when your player is going to spawn, you first and foremost set a player prefab to be a game object here from, or rather a prefab from your assets folder. And then you can also check if you want to automatically create the player or if you want to call it through scripting by yourself manually. You can also set a player spawn method, which pretty much is first and foremost random, but you can also set a different kind of filter for it. And like it says here, how to determine which network start position to spawn players at from all network start positions in the scene. So you can set a lot of different start positions in your scene, and you can randomly pick one, or else you can go with round robin as they call it. We also have registered spawnable prefabs. This is very important, just like the player prefab. Well, not really, like it's not similar to player prefab, but these are the two most important things to actually set before getting into your game, because registered spawnable prefabs are pretty much going to be the prefabs you can spawn in the game, like a bullet if your player is able to shoot. Now we are actually going to add one more script to our game manager here, which is called Network Manager HUD. So this one is pretty much a UI that you can use by the beginning of your game. In case you want to create your own, that's completely fine, but this is basically the basic UI you get when you start your game. You can see that now we have a few buttons here and even a text field. First and foremost, we have a LAN host, so you can pretty much host the game on your client itself in case you're going to jump right into the game, or else you can also host it on server only, which will mean that you're not a client necessarily, so you're not going to be able to play the game through this client that you're looking through. You can also connect to the LAN client, so in case you and then you can obviously enter the IP address here if you have a different IP, but since it's on localhost set by default in the network manager here, you can obviously join the game in case it's already being hosted. If I click it right now, it's not going to connect because obviously we're not hosting anything yet. But if I do LAN host, then I can pretty much build this, start a new game, and come here with that new client, and then boom, just click here and I'll be able to join. And obviously nothing is going to be synced so far. We are just going to be on the same server because we're hosting it from my computer, or from my network rather, and we're going to be able to join upon that. And you can also join it from your home and all that kind of stuff. So it works, the networking works, but obviously the hard-coded part where you actually play a game is not done yet. So we're actually going to check that out, and obviously Network Manager HUD can be created by yourself. You don't have to go with the default one. We are going to use it for now. We might even create our own later, but for now it's obviously really good to just have it as an example, or maybe like a prototyping kind of part of this series. Now, as you guys can see here, if we try playing the game and running into the server, so we try connecting, it's obviously going to throw an error here, which is going to say the player prefab is empty on the network manager. Please set up a player prefab object. So essentially what it's telling us is literally, hey, you forgot the player prefab in here. So you're trying to spawn a player since a client connects to the server, but there is none to actually spawn. So we're gonna follow its kind of, steps, guidance, and actually create our player here. What we're gonna do though is a little bit different from all the other tutorials that I've seen on like forums and all that kind of stuff. We are not going to just create our player to be a parent object, which is going to be a cube. We are going to create an empty game object, which is going to be the parent. And then as a child, we are going to have some kind of graphical resemblance of the player, like a character, like a 3D model, like player cube or sphere or whatever it might be, right? Depending on your kind of game. In my case, we are going to use a cube to demonstrate this, maybe even a sphere. I don't know, we'll see. But first and foremost, let's go ahead and create the empty game object here, and we can actually rename it to player object. So the reason I am doing this by creating a empty object first and foremost is because we want to ensure that the player is always present in the scene even if the player dies. What I mean by that is, if let's say if you're running a FPS game, right, and your player gets shot, he dies, and you don't want to disconnect him from the server just because he died. You still want to showcase the scoreboard. You want to showcase the player, hey, you died, you can replay by clicking this button, and so on and so forth. And if you do have a player cube, or the parent object as a cube right off the bat, and the player graphic itself, like the 3D model you're using for your player, if you destroy that object, it's going to destroy it completely from the hierarchy, which means it's going to be non-existent in the game anymore, which essentially means he's going to be disconnected. So what you want to do instead, you want to use a empty game object, which is going to be the presence of the player, and then you want to have a 3D graphic or 2D graphic even, which is going to be a child of the player object, which is the empty one. And that way you can just disable the graphic upon the player dying, or maybe just play an animation and have ragdoll physics and all that kind of stuff. But the player object, the empty one, is still going to be present and is still going to be connected to the network. So it's the proper way of handling this situation. I see that a lot of people actually miss out on this, and Quill18 actually covered this up in his tutorial too. So thank you to him for being so honest in his video regarding this, because obviously it's a thing a lot of people miss out on. So what you want to do here, we can actually right click on this, just go to 3D object, and what should we say? Should we say a cube? I think we can do a cube, right, for our player. I think that's a pretty good resemblance of the player. So now obviously it's going to be spawned in the center of player objects, so which is a good thing. So we can just move the player as we want to freely. Maybe we can actually keep the position I want it to be centered. My OCD is striking. I don't even know if I do have OCD. It's kind of insulting to people who actually have it, I think. The cube itself, we can rename it to player graphics, so that we ensure that, you know, we can find it upon searching. Next step here, we are going to add a component which is going to help us, or assist us rather, in terms of identifying the specific client and the specific object and their bond or relationship in between. What I mean is we can actually add the component to make it easier. So we just click on add component, search network identity, and we're adding that component here. So we only have a couple of options. This is actually a pretty cute script in terms of how short it is and how straightforward it is. It's super easy to use as well. And we're gonna go through these, but basically network identity is the component that is required for the game object, or the player object rather, to be assigned to a client correctly. So we are going to visualize this a little bit in terms of speech, although it's not visually, but audio visually. But what I'm saying is, when your client gets connected to the server, you want one of these player objects to get assigned to that client. And when it does, you want to ensure that the player object is, you know, shown as assigned to a client already, so that it doesn't get assigned to another client and another client doesn't get control over this. So you're only saying if a client connects to this object, limit it, constraint, and make sure that the only way of this game object being controlled, unless we actually call upon the otherwise, is by the client that is connected to it. And speaking of which, if the object is actually something that is going to be controlled and affected by the player, we have a variable that we can check, which is super easy, called local player authority. And as it says in the description, true if this object will be controlled by a player on a client. So if your player, obviously since this is a player object, it is going to be controlled by our player or our client perhaps. So we just check this box here. Now, if we didn't check this, we also have one called server only, which is, like it says in the description, true if the object should only exist on the server, which means that this is not a object that is going to be controlled by the player or any other client that is connected to our server. It is a object that is controlled over the server. Only server can, go through this object pretty much. The only way you want to use this is like for the game manager, but even though we don't have a network identity and we don't need it because we already have a network manager, but server only, you can have it for your environment objects in case you want to make sure that they are not movable or controllable by the players. But for now, obviously this is our player object, so we want to ensure that we check local player authority. And now that we actually have covered up the network identity, the network manager, and we have a game that is, I was gonna say playable, but it's not really playable, literally. But it's connectable, and we can connect to the game and actually, see all the other players. We're going to visually see that. So we are going to do like this. We're gonna hold down Control, click B, and it's going to build and run our game. So Unity is a beautiful software that is going to take control of that automatically. And you might get a different window. It might not be as straightforward as for me because I have already built the game for myself in a folder. So you just click, whatever it is. The window will basically allow you to pick the directory you want to save your game build into. So you just pick it, click OK or save, I think it is, or maybe even build, and then you boom, get this window here. So we're gonna play it. Wait, hold on, wrong button. I didn't want to do that. I forgot that it was on full screen. So it started on full screen in my first monitor. We're gonna do like this. Let me show you guys this. So windowed 2880 by 720. Yeah, let's spawn it on, or whatever, display one. There we go. Alright, so there we go. So this is one of our clients, and we are going to host the game by using this one. And you even get a network test access allowance from Windows Security Alert. Allow that. There we go. Alright, so now we're hosting the game from this client, and we are also connected to our player. And we're now going to use Unity to actually connect this to different clients. So we're just going to click on LAN client, which is going to connect to our local host, which is this network that I'm hosting the game through. And when I do, you can see that we had two different player objects. Now we can actually move one of these and go back to the client that we have here, and you can see that it's not syncing, right? So it's not visible that we have actually moved one of our players. And if we do the same with the other player, it's not going to be visible in the client either. The reason to that is because we are connected completely. We are connected to the game. It's all working fine, but we're not having any sync in terms of the transform, which is position, rotation, and scale, as you can see here. One way of easily solving that because of Unity technologies, you guys are beautiful. I love you all and your faces. You just simply add a component to your player object that you want to move, and you want to sync through the server whenever he or she moves, which is network transform. There we go. So in the network transform, we first and foremost have a network send rate. This is one of the most important variables you want to play around with, because this is going to be the amount of ticks the player can actually, or the syncing can be done through the server every frame or every second. Yeah, every second, not every frame. That would be ridiculous. So when you set it to be 30 by maximum, I think it downgrades to even 29. So it means that it's going to be, checking this player object 29 times per second in case if it's moving or not. And if it is, then it's going to move it to the new position that the player has moved to. And transform sync mode, obviously you can change it from here in case you want to sync the transform, or you want to sync rigid body 2D, 3D, or even a character controller in case you're using the default one by Unity. And you can also change the movement threshold, snap threshold, interpolate, movement factor, and all that kind of detail. I don't really usually play around with these. I just increase the network send rate to 29 although the package sent to the server will be bigger, obviously, because we're checking for more activity rather than just 9 times per second. And interpolate rotation factor, we have rotation axis and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to check out for specific axis rotation, you can do so by using these limits or constraints perhaps. You also have compressed rotations and a sync angular velocity. So you have these details, but to get it working, you pretty much just have to add the network transform component. So what we're gonna do now is we are going to do the same, we're gonna repeat the same step that we did before, basically just run or build and run the game, and we can actually run it through Unity's client, and we can also host it through Unity's client so that we have it ready when our player actually joins up. There we go. Just join. There we go. So we are now connected to the same server. There are actually 2 players, as you can see. To make it a little bit more obvious, obviously we can also move this player to the side a little bit. And now if you go back to the client, you can see that it's being synced. And we can move it, you know, here upwards, and we can go back to the client and you're gonna see that it's syncing now. So it's really good. It's working fine. But obviously you can also add some, we are actually going to add the movement itself to the player by code. But yeah, that is pretty much it, guys. We're gonna leave it for now at this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed this brand new series. If you did, make sure to drop a like down below. Those thumbs up literally save my day, make my days, maybe sounds better. Is because obviously when we start a new series on the channel, I want to make sure that everybody enjoys, since we are a lot of people now on the channel, in the community especially. So I want to ensure that a lot of people do enjoy. Obviously everyone is not going to be enjoying, but you know, a lot of people should be enjoying because you guys are a big part of the reason I make videos. So I want you guys to be in charge of what actually gets uploaded and what is the standard for the videos to get qualified for you to actually watch them and to be, you know, entertained, and also at the same time to find them educational. So let me know in the I was gonna say feedback section. Let me know in the comments section if you have any feedback. It can be called feedback section. I mean, it's literally what it is used for. And also memeing, and also Discord squad, hashtag Discord squad. Speaking of which, if you're not joined yet, you can join our Discord squad. We help out each other and we have a lot more close communication. Because the comment section kind of dies after a few days, obviously because the videos are still viewed, but you know, people aren't chatting in the comment section. They just post if they need something or just want to say hi or just brag about the fact that they're in Discord squad, which a lot of people like. But I do, you know, acknowledge that. I do that as well. So anyway, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this brand new episode or brand new series even. If you did, once again, leave a like, hit the comment section if you're interested in knowing something, if you need any help, if you feel like I didn't cover up something, or if you need any, if you want to leave any feedback for the next episode. Also, if you have any kind of suggestions on what you want to have covered up in the future episodes, let me know once again in the comments. And if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe so you stay up to tune for new videos, new episodes of UNet. I'm looking forward to these episodes, this series and these episodes. They are really fun, and networking is very fun. I love networking, so you know, at the same time, I'm still learning as well while going through, but being able to teach is a very good way of learning too. So it's nice. It's nice. Once again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will either catch you in the Discord or in the comment section. I literally just turned the words around for the first time ever. I usually say comments or Discord, but I'll see you guys in either of the sections. I guess either in Discord or in the comment section. See you guys. Peace out. Have a good night. Bye bye.